Greetings, English 101. Welcome to Unit 3. We're moving right along. By the end of this unit, we'll be almost halfway through the course. I hope the pace is not keeping you too dizzy or certainly too busy. Before I go any further, I want you to have a couple of handouts handy, ready to look at. I'm going to be referring to the Unit 3 essay, the criteria for evaluation for your paper on exemplification. And I'm going to refer briefly to the instructions for Essay 3, which will be your essay developed mainly using exemplification. So I'll pause a moment while you go round up those documents. Exemplification is just a fancy word for using examples. You hear the root in the multisyllabic exemplification. The first word that comes out of that is example. It's one of the most basic building blocks of expository writing because anytime we state a claim or an assertion about a debatable matter, what are we going to use to prove our point? Very frequently, we'll use examples. I'll give you kind of an outrageous example, but it's one I think makes the point. There's an old saying, it's old to me anyway, I don't know if some of you young ones have heard this or not, but when I was growing up all along, there was kind of an old joke saying that went like this: blondes have more fun. Growing up, you can't tell now, but growing up, I was very blonde. I was a cotton top. It never made any sense to me that I had more fun than anyone else, but I think it applied mainly to young ladies and the idea that there was an advantage to being blonde. So take that statement, blondes have more fun. Is that statement true, or is that statement not true? Is that statement subject to debate? I think all of us would agree that the statement blondes have more fun is a debatable issue. And then if you took either side of that statement and sought to prove either its truth or to disprove it, you would need to provide examples. You would cite examples of Sally, Jane, and Sue. Aha, here are some brunettes, yet they have more fun than Amy, Paula, and Jane over here. And you'd provide examples of things they did and things they said and things that happened to them that illustrated that either blondes did have more fun or did not have more fun. So using examples, the Longman Reader is very, very clear, provides very good explanation, and is more important, I think, as we go into Unit 3 than it was in Units 2 and 1, to understand the theory, the rhetorical theory that the Longman Reader explains, because you're going to be asked to apply that theory to the task of exemplification. Looking at the list of topics you have to choose to write about, these are general topics. Just for example, option 1, a pet food company is having an annual contest to choose a new animal to feature in its advertising. To win the contest, you must convince the company that your pet is personable, playful, and unique. All right, you're going to write an essay about your pet to develop that topic. But you have to do more than write an essay about your pet. You have to write an essay that addresses the topic and provides examples of your pet's behavior. You know, what does your pet do that is personable, playful, and unique? You're going to have to explain those characteristics by providing examples. So it's one thing to choose the topic, it's another thing to apply the principles of exemplification. That's why reading the Chapter 5 is very important. Not just reading Chapter 5, but also understanding what it's asking you to apply as you approach the task of writing. Let me go briefly over the assignments. You have 8 different options to choose from. Most of them give you a rhetorical situation, which means you have to imagine yourself in this particular role. The first one I just went over. The next one, you've observed religious hypocrisy in church. You notice that the hypocritical conduct of some church people is hurting the church's effectiveness in the community. That assignment is probably going to be more effective if you have actually been in a position where you have noticed that. And you can refer to real-life examples. By the way, if you write about that topic and use real-life examples, it's not necessary to necessarily give names or even places. But anyway, you're in the specific rhetorical situation where you have observed this, and now you're going to write about it. The third topic, suppose, or the suppose means you have to use your imagination. Play like you recently received an inexpensive present from a friend or family member. That topic approach is going to be more effective if you can remember a specific example that really happened to you that proves the point of option 3. By the way, these are all options to choose from. You're not going to write about all 8 of these topics. You're going to choose one of the 8 to develop your essay. The fourth option, once again, suppose you are a writer for the campus student magazine. Well, you're not the writer, but put yourself in that writer's shoes, in that writer's position. Read the rest of the prompt to see how you respond. Option 5, this was unique. Note options 5 and 7. Let's look at those together. No, 5, 7, and 8, excuse me. All three of those are going to ask you to argue the point of a statement. Option 5, how to avoid bad blank habits is a course college students should take. You fill in the blank. How to avoid bad eating habits, how to avoid bad study habits, how to avoid bad dating habits. You're welcome to apply a sense of humor if you wish. Option 7, you're going to argue whether it's true. You got to argue the truth of the statement. Failure often proves to be a more effective teacher than success. Perhaps you had some experiences in your own life where failing taught you an important lesson and actually got you farther down the road than if you would have succeeded. Option 8, don't be confused by option 8 because you can really make multiple options out of it. The base example there, you could take a Cajun out of South Louisiana, but you can't take Cajun out of a South Louisianian. Well, what if you're not Cajun, but you're Texan? You could say you can take a Texan out of Texas, but you can't take Texas out of a Texan. That's the way you would play with that. So wherever you're from, whatever ethnic or cultural group you agree with, you can just fill in the blanks with different words. Okay, so that's a rich variety of options for your paper on exemplification. I included in Unit 3 a paper that was written by a student, I think in last year's course, which is, or maybe last year's course, the year before, one of the best papers that's ever responded to the assignment. And I did a podcast a few years ago. No, I'm sorry. Let's backtrack. I'm giving you the wrong information. There is the student example, Michael Pagano's essay, In the Pursuit of Possessions. That's the student example in Chapter 5. I did a podcast several years ago, kind of a mini lecture explaining that essay, and I've kept that podcast in Unit 3, even though I was referring to the pages from an outdated version of the Longman Reader. So I included the correct page numbers in Module 3 by the podcast, in parentheses after the name of that podcast. And you'll want to listen to that podcast, following along with the essay in the Longman Reader as I give a little mini lesson explaining some of the features. Because remember, these models, the student examples in the Longman Reader, are provided for your imitation. If you see that writer writing a thesis statement in 2 parts at the end of the introduction, hey, you should be doing the same thing. If you see that writer using topic sentences to begin all 3 or 4 of the body paragraphs to introduce the subtopics, and using transitions between body paragraphs, you should be doing the same thing. The student samples are just that. If it works for that student, if it's worth using as an example, then you should apply the same strategies to your own writing. Okay, the only other thing I'll say briefly now is about the evaluation criteria. You got used to this in Unit 2. You see how you got ratings, 3, 2, 1, 0 points for 5 different criteria. I pointed out in Unit 2 that 3 of the criteria stay the same from unit to unit. The 2 criteria that are related specifically to rhetorical theory dealing with exemplification will be criteria 2 and criteria 3. You want to pay careful attention to those. Both of those refer to the Longman Reader. Those 2 criteria come from the concepts that the Longman Reader stresses and also stresses in the examples that are provided there. Well, that's a pretty good overview of Unit 3. I'm glad you're hanging on, that you're here this far. If you have any questions, by all means, send me an email, send me a text, and I will be seeing you in the Look What I Wrote forum for Module 3. Happy drafts and good luck.